Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take the most complex, high-stakes narratives swirling around the culture, stack up all the available source material, and carve it up so you walk away feeling instantly and thoroughly well-informed.
And today, we are pulling the thread on a story that honestly should have been a celebration.
It really should have. But it quickly turned into a legal and psychological battleground.
We're talking about the high-stakes drama surrounding the making of the romantic film. It Ends With Us. This was supposed to be a dream project, pairing a global superstar, Blake Lively, with a director beloved by millions, Justin Baldoni.
A perfect match on paper.
Exactly. But instead, the sources show us that the set became ground zero for a colossal, very public legal nightmare.
Right, and we are not talking about a simple contract dispute or, creative differences. We are diving into a universe of alleged sexual harassment, accusations of coordinated smear campaigns,
Potential evidence destruction.
and staggering financial claims. I mean, a $400 million lawsuit being launched and then aggressively shut down.
It's so much more than just a celebrity spat.
It really is. It feels like a public, messy exposure of the dark side of Hollywood power plays influence and the audacious strategy of leveraging the legal system for reputation management.
So our mission today for you, the listener, is clear. This deep dive is designed to unpack 3 critical battlefronts that are all happening at once.
Okay, what are they?
First, the legal strategy, the chess moves being made in the courtroom, including this really critical anti-SLAPP defense we're going to get into. Second, the battlefield of evidence. There are shocking accusations of using encrypted, auto-deleting apps to, cover tracks.
And the third?
And third, the parallel war for public perception, which, often feels even more brutal than the litigation itself. This case is a critical mirror held up to post-#MeToo Hollywood.
How so?
It illustrates precisely how legal systems and media narratives collide when these monumental reputations are on the line.
Right. So let's unpack this collision, because this didn't start subtly at all. It began not with a mediation session, but with an absolute bombshell filed just before the end of 2024.
A big one.
So Blake Lively, she fires the first shot, right? This was back in December 2024. It was a formal legal complaint against Justin Baldoni and his production company, Wayfair Studios, and the details that immediately leaked out. They were instantly shocking just because of how specific they were.
And the specifics matter immensely here, especially in the context of employment law. Lively's legal team filed the complaint structured not around a generalized grievance like it was a bad vibe.
Right, not just a hostile work environment.
Exactly. Because that's actually much harder to prove than detailing specific instances of alleged behavior.
And when we talk about detailing the allegations, they were not vague at all. The complaint included specific claims of sexual comments being made, repeated discussions of pornography happening on set, and these incredibly intrusive, inappropriate questions directed at her about her body.
See, that level of detail, it elevates the lawsuit immediately. It frames it as a serious breach of professional conduct and workplace safety, not just, some workplace friction.
The legal strategy that Lively's team deployed was, it felt really comprehensive. It wasn't just a claim of sexual harassment.
No, it was layered. The complaint strategically included a vital second element, the retaliation claim.
Explain that. What does that mean here?
Lively alleges that when she did the necessary professional thing, when she lodged a formal complaint about these inappropriate behaviors, Baldoni and his team didn't retreat. They didn't apologize or seek mediation.
They did the opposite.
They did the opposite. She claims they swiftly pivoted to active, malicious retaliation, allegedly initiating a coordinated smear campaign designed to discredit her entirely and paint her as the originator of all the problems on set.
Wow. That just shifts the legal dynamic completely, doesn't it?
It really does. You move from an allegation of inappropriate behavior to a high-stakes, intentional power struggle meant to silence a complainant.
So she sued for both sexual harassment and retaliation, seeking nearly $500 million in damages.
And that dollar amount, nearly $500 million, is a clear signaling mechanism.
It's not just a random number.
Not at all. In defamation and harassment cases, damages are often based on economic and emotional harm. Seeking an amount that high frames this not just as a claim for personal distress, but as a claim for profound financial and reputational damage.
So she's basically saying this could ruin her career.
Exactly. The alleged harassment and the subsequent smear campaign could derail her ability to secure future roles endorsements, you name it. It says to the world and to the courts, this is about full accountability for alleged career sabotage and abuse that operates on a global celebrity scale.
It just immediately escalated the environment into a high-octane legal war.
Mm-hmm.
And if Lively's initial filing was a bombshell, Baldoni's response was not just a denial. It was a full-scale, scorched-earth counteroffensive.
Yeah, in January 2025, just a few weeks after her suit, he launched this aggressive, headline-grabbing $400 million countersuit.
This was a masterclass in aggressive defense, really.
Yeah.
It felt designed to create legal parody and, frankly, public confusion.
Absolutely. Baldoni's move was offensive, aimed squarely at the top. He sued not only Lively, but strategically included her husband, Ryan Reynolds, and their entire team.
Which immediately escalates the conflict into a legal turf war involving one of Hollywood's most powerful and media-savvy couples.
Right. The strategy was clear. Make the cost of litigation so high and the potential target so wide that Lively would be forced to retreat.
What's so fascinating here is the core of Baldoni's narrative. He didn't just deny the harassment claims, he reframed them entirely.
He did. He put them in the context of professional control.
His central claim was that Lively's allegations were a false and damaging weapon, being deployed not for justice, but as leverage to hijack the creative control of the film away from him.
And this is a classic legal pivot. It attempts to shift the focus from workplace conduct, which is inherently emotional and, subjective to professional motivation and contract disputes.
So his claim was that Lively, leveraging her immense star power and her role as a producer on the film, was using the guise of a workplace complaint to push him out of the editing room and wrest final creative authority from him.
Yeah, which turns the entire dispute into a question of power structure rather than misconduct.
And to back up his claims of a power grab, he offered these specific grievances. They might sound a little petty on the surface, but they were definitely intended to paint a picture of an actor overstepping her role.
Like what?
Well, we're talking about accusations that Lively sought to push him entirely out of the editing room, which is a direct challenge to the director's traditional authority.
Okay, that's a big one.
And then, perhaps most symbolically, that she had him banished to the basement during the movie's premiere.
It sounds like such a strange detail, but it's a brilliant narrative tool for his legal team.
How so?
The banished to the basement claim functions as a metaphor for the wholesale loss of control over his own project and really his standing in the industry.
So, by alleging these actions, Baldoni framed himself as the victim.
Exactly. Not the victim of inappropriate conduct, but of a powerful star's cynical plot to destroy his career and seize creative authority using the language and the weight of the #MeToo movement.
That narrative, which framed his $400 million legal action as a defense against professional sabotage, turned the initial harassment case into what the sources aptly described as a billion-dollar he said, she said war.
Both sides were now claiming the moral high ground while wielding massive legal firepower. And both were alleging that the other was the true perpetrator of abuse, be it professional or personal.
This whole collision just highlights how difficult it is to resolve disputes in modern Hollywood, where star power is often indistinguishable from producing power.
You're so right. When the lead actor is also a producer with massive financial clout, the lines of authority just blur. Any dispute over creative control can be weaponized with claims of a hostile environment, or, on the other side, claims of defamation and sabotage.
And as messy as those initial claims and counterclaims were, the discussion quickly moved from who was telling the truth to who was hiding the evidence.
Wow.
So let's delve into the actual legal maneuvering now.
Okay.
We've seen the explosive claims, but the real test is always the evidence. Let's get into the casebreaker files now, because as the courts began to examine the case in early 2025, a truly shocking and pretty damning allegation emerged about potential evidence manipulation.
This is where the legal process becomes really unforgiving. In litigation, if you destroy evidence that you know, or that you reasonably should know, is relevant to a pending or anticipated lawsuit, it's a form of misconduct called spoliation of evidence.
And that's what Lively's team accused them of.
That was the accusation.
Yeah.
Lively's side said Baldoni's team was using encrypted communication apps, specifically Signal, which was actively configured to auto-delete messages after a set period of time.
The significance of that auto-delete function, especially when litigation about a smear campaign is not just pending but already filed, that seems monumental.
It is. Lively's lawyers asserted that this move systematically erased communications directly related to the alleged coordination of the smear campaign against her. They didn't pull any punches either. They called it outright destroying relevant evidence.
And that detail immediately poisons the well for the defense, right? Even if the content of the destroyed messages was totally benign.
It does, because you can't prove it either way now. A key legal principle is that if a party intentionally destroys evidence, the court can instruct the jury to draw an adverse inference.
Wait, what does that adverse inference mean in practical terms for the jury? What are they told?
It means the jury can be legally instructed to assume that the destroyed evidence would have been unfavorable to the party that destroyed it.
Wow.
So if Baldoni's team destroyed messages that Lively claims contain proof of the smear campaign, the jury can be told, you may assume those messages contained evidence of the smear campaign.
So whether the messages were benign or damning becomes almost irrelevant.
Almost. The act of destruction itself suggests an intentional concealment of guilt, and that significantly damages Baldoni's credibility on all of his claims.
It definitely adds a layer of cloak and dagger drama to the legal files, but the single biggest legal turning point, the one that completely shifted the legal momentum, happened in June 2025.
Yes.
The judge completely dismissed Baldoni's entire $400 million countersuit.
That is a staggering defeat, and the reason why it was dismissed is essential to understanding this new legal landscape around power and speech. The judge didn't just dismiss it on a technical filing error.
No.
The ruling strongly suggested the entire countersuit was a strategic lawsuit against public participation, the famous anti-cell APP twist.
Okay, let's dedicate some serious time here to anti-cell APP laws, because this is the legal tool that basically decapitated Baldoni's massive retaliation strategy. For those who aren't familiar, what exactly is a cell APP suit, and why does California's statute have such incredible power?
Okay, so a cell APP suit is typically a defamation, business interference, or some other kind of lawsuit filed by a powerful, wealthy party against someone who has exercised their fundamental right to free speech on a matter of public interest.
So the goal isn't really to win.
Not necessarily on the merits, no. The goal of a cell APP is to use the sheer financial cost, the time, and the emotional burden of litigation to financially exhaust and ultimately silence the critic or accuser. It is, quite literally, legal bullying.
So when Baldoni launched his $400 million counterclaim right after Lively filed her harassment suit, the judge looked at it and said, "This smells like an intimidation tactic designed to silence her claim."
That is the essence of the ruling. California has one of the strongest anti-SLAPP statutes in the country. It provides a quick, specialized procedural mechanism for defendants to strike down claims early in the litigation process.
And it's a two-pronged process, right?
It is, yeah. The first prong is pretty straightforward. The defendant, in this case Lively, has to show that the cause of action, so Baldoni's countersuit, arose from protected activity.
What's protected activity?
It includes statements made in connection with an issue under consideration by a judicial body, or just matters of public interest. And clearly, a major sexual harassment suit involving two global figures falls under public interest.
So Lively easily met that first prong by arguing her initial complaint was protected speech.
Easily.
So once she established that, what did Baldoni have to do to save his countersuit?
He had to satisfy the second, much harder prong. He had to establish a probability of prevailing on the claim.
Which means?
Essentially, he had to present enough evidence to convince the judge that his $400 million defamation and interference claims were legally viable and likely to succeed at trial. This is a crucial hurdle, because the law is intended to filter out baseless or retaliatory suits quickly.
And the judge ruled that Baldoni failed to demonstrate that probability of success?
Exactly. The ruling was damning. The judge didn't believe he could prove. Lively's claims were simply a cynical ploy to hijack control, especially given the nature of the specific sexual harassment allegations.
So, by finding Baldoni failed the second prong, the judge confirmed that the countersuit looked suspiciously like an effort to punish Lively for speaking out about workplace misconduct.
Precisely. And this is a monumental victory for accusers in the post-#MeToo era. It shows courts are actively using anti-SLAPP legislation to provide a legal shield against these massive retaliatory lawsuits.
It confirms that the momentum shifted entirely. And as if the anti-cell APP dismissal wasn't enough, by November 2025, Baldoni's massive, aggressive countersuit was officially closed for good.
This happened because his legal team effectively lost the desire or maybe the ability to continue fighting. After the anti-cell APP dismissal, they missed crucial subsequent deadlines.
They just let them pass?
They did, essentially failing to successfully appeal the ruling or refile the case under a different structure that might withstand the SLPP scrutiny. Once those deadlines passed, the dismissal became final and unappealable.
So the contrast now is just stark. Baldoni's $500 million effort to sue Lively, Reynolds, and their entire team is dead and buried, shut down by protections designed for free speech.
Right.
Meanwhile, Blake Lively's original lawsuit, the one alleging sexual harassment and retaliation, is still alive and actively headed for what could be an explosive trial in May 2026.
And that contrast is the clearest legal takeaway so far. One lawsuit collapsed under the weight of anti-retaliation protections. The other is moving toward discovery, depositions, and a date with a jury.
The legal system in this instance has protected the accuser's right to speak and pursue her claim, and it stripped away the powerful defendant's primary weapon of counter-intimidation. This brings us naturally to a concept that Lively's team explicitly brought up, DARVO. How does Baldoni's legal strategy connect to this pattern, and why is that term so powerful right now?
DARVO is a really potent acronym. It stands for Deny, Attack, and Reverse Victim and Offender. It's often referenced in psychological and legal analyses of responses to abuse accusations. Lively's team didn't just casually mention it. They strategically introduced it to frame Baldoni's aggressive legal actions as an established pattern of behavior, not just an isolated legitimate defense.
Can you break down the timeline of Baldoni's response through the lens of DARVO?
Absolutely. The pattern fits almost perfectly. So step one, deny the initial allegations. Baldoni denied the harassment claims, called them false.
Check.
Step two, attack the accuser. Baldoni launched the massive $400 million suit against Lively, her powerful husband, and their team. This isn't just a denial. It's a massive escalation intended to frighten and silence.
Right.
And step three, reverse victim and offender. Baldoni claimed he was the actual victim of a cynical plot to destroy his career and steal creative control of his project, which makes Lively the villain who abused the legal process.
I see the strategic implication there. By labeling the aggressive countersuit as DARVO, Lively's lawyers are basically arguing that the process of the countersuit itself is evidence of the accused's manipulative tactics.
Precisely. And the fact that the anti-SLAPP judge found that Baldoni's claims lacked a probability of success lends significant weight to this interpretation. It suggests the court recognized that the financial and legal pressure applied was potentially disproportionate and intended to silence.
This is a critical development in post-#MeToo litigation, where wealthy defendants often rely on the attack the accuser strategy.
It is. The courts are beginning to recognize and legally neutralize that weapon.
It sounds like the legal front, which once looked like mutually assured destruction, is now leaning heavily toward Lively. But the courtroom is only half the story.
Not even.
Now let's move to the other front in this war. The one that's far messier, moves at the speed of light, and is ultimately decided by public fatigue, the court of public opinion.
Right.
So while the lawyers were buried in anti-SLAP motions and evidence destruction claims, a ferocious parallel war was raging online. We are now entering the narrative detective zone, analyzing how the public was actively targeted and why both protagonists ended up suffering massive reputational damage.
And this side of the battle is arguably where the long-term consequences are truly decided. For major celebrities, a tarnished reputation can cost far more in endorsements and future opportunities than any single civil judgment.
And the tactics used here, particularly the allegations of coordinated digital warfare, they seem to have just deeply corrupted the whole concept of genuine public discourse.
They really did.
Let's start with the allegation of the astroturfing campaign. Lively's team didn't just claim there was general online criticism. They accused Baldoni's camp of actively orchestrating a fake grassroots movement astroturfing.
Right, to flood social media with hate against her and delegitimize her claims.
Astroturfing is the artificial simulation of widespread public support or opposition. The accusation here is that the massive wave of negative commentary against Lively wasn't just organic fan reaction or, concerned citizens.
The claim is that it was a strategically coordinated, perhaps even paid for, campaign designed to manufacture public opinion.
And how might a campaign like that even operate? We're talking about sophisticated PR operations, not just a couple of angry tweets.
Oh, absolutely. A sophisticated astroturfing campaign operates through several layers. At the lowest level, it involves creating networks of seemingly authentic, newly established accounts that are programmed to post nearly identical messages, oftentimes to coincide with negative news about the opposing party. But at a higher level, it involves paying influencers or using sophisticated bot armies to amplify specific derogatory hashtags.
So that when the public searches for news on the lawsuit, the top results are flooded with negative sentiment directed at Lively.
Exactly. It creates the illusion of overwhelming popular rejection of her claims.
Baldoni's side, of course, adamantly countered this. They claimed that the significant backlash against Lively was entirely organic, just the natural reaction of disappointed fans who believed his version of the story.
But the data point provides a fascinating insight into the consequence of this ugly conflict.
Yeah, this part is really interesting.
We know that negative mentions for both stars skyrocketed to over 60%, specifically between 61% and 63% immediately following the filings and the subsequent public fighting.
That statistic is profoundly telling. Because if only one side was deploying aggressive, maybe manipulative tactics, you would expect their negative sentiment to be disproportionately higher.
Exactly. But the fact that both Baldoni and Lively saw their negativity spike above 60% suggests the collateral damage of this social media warfare was immense, and it was shared.
It indicates that the public, acting as the jury, wasn't choosing sides based on the claims themselves. They were just reacting negatively to the sheer level of hostility, aggression, and perceived manipulation from both camps.
Yeah, when a legal fight involves accusations of harassment, creative hijacking, evidence destruction, and fake online armies, the public becomes alienated and cynical toward everyone involved. It just creates this massive vacuum of trust.
And that vacuum of trust was arguably deepened by the most controversial public move made by Lively's legal team in the middle of all this digital chaos. The decision to target critics directly.
Yes, this is where the power dynamic becomes extremely stark, and where the conversation shifts from defending reputation to potentially suppressing free speech.
Right, because Lively's lawyers subpoenaed Google with the explicit intention of unmasking 16 YouTubers and journalists who had publicly offered commentary or criticism, some of it pretty harsh regarding her handling of the situation.
Subpoenaing major legal figures in the opposing camp is one thing.
Sure.
Subpoenaing private citizens, content creators, and journalists who are offering commentary is a different order of intimidation entirely.
It creates a massive chilling effect. A subpoena forces these individuals, who often operate without major studio backing or legal departments, to hire their own attorneys, maybe travel, and defend their right to criticize or comment on a public matter.
It's a huge legal and financial burden for a content creator.
And the reaction from those targeted was clear. We know that one creator specifically called it an intimidation tactic, suggesting the intent wasn't necessarily to win a future defamation case, but to shut down the commentary immediately.
The intention is often the suppression of speech itself. This legal maneuver, particularly from someone with Lively's resources, raises serious questions about the limits of celebrity power.
How so?
If major stars can use the legal system, which, let's remember, just protected Lively under the anti-SLAP statute, to unmask and potentially sue individuals who are commenting on a matter of public interest, it establishes a dangerous precedent.
It suggests that even commentary that is factual or protected opinion can be swept into this billion-dollar dispute, thereby controlling the conversation.
It transforms legal strategy into a mechanism for controlling the public narrative, regardless of the merit of the underlying claims. It makes the cost of having an opinion on a complex celebrity lawsuit far too high for the average person who runs a commentary channel.
And this feeds directly back into the core narrative conflict the public is forced to digest. This clash between star power and creative control.
Right. The narrative detective has to synthesize these two incredibly powerful yet conflicting stories.
Let's break down the binary choice the public has been presented with throughout this saga. The sources force you to ask, is Blake Lively a courageous producer standing up to a hostile work environment? Is she using her power responsibly to demand accountability?
Or, conversely, is she a powerful star exploiting the momentum of a social movement, the weight of the #MeToo era, primarily to hijack creative control of a film, seizing the reins from the director, and then using the legal system to silence any critics of that power grab?
Her opponents frame her actions not as justice-seeking, but as cynical career opportunism disguised as activism. And then we have Baldoni's counter-narrative, which is just as complex. Is Justin Baldoni a director fighting a targeted smear campaign, defending his reputation against false accusations that were used as a cynical professional weapon?
Or was his aggressive $400 million ultimately failed lawsuit proof of retaliation? Did the judge's anti-SLAPP dismissal confirm that his primary intention was not to seek justice for defamation, but to intimidate and silence his accuser, thereby validating the accusation that he deployed classic Darvo tactics?
It's this vicious, impossible cycle of competing victimhoods. And the ultimate conclusion in the court of public opinion is that there are no winners yet. both stars saw their reputations significantly tarnished.
That tarnishing is the measurable real-world consequence. The messy social media war, the allegations of astroturfing, the evidence destruction claims, the failed $500 million countersuit, all of it combined to make both sides look aggressive, highly manipulative, and overly concerned with control and litigation.
Not genuine creative collaboration or, crucially, genuine justice.
Right. The public is left in a state of deep cynicism, dissecting every text, every legal filing, and every comment, unable to definitively assign blame or innocence.
The only thing we know for sure is that a film about finding love became the backdrop for one of the most toxic, high-stakes legal and PR wars in recent memory. So let's quickly review the current state and momentum as we close out this deep dive. The legal picture has clarified significantly since the initial filings, heavily favoring one side.
That's right. The momentum has definitively shifted. Justin Baldoni's massive, aggressive countersuit, the one that attempted to drag Ryan Reynolds into the fray and was intended to intimidate the opposing side, is permanently dismissed.
Shut down first under California's anti-SLAP protections aimed at safeguarding free speech and protecting accusers from retaliation.
And then sealed after his team missed crucial subsequent legal deadlines. It was a critical failure of his legal offensive.
Which leaves us with Blake Lively's original case. That suit, containing the serious allegations of specific sexual comments, inappropriate workplace behavior, and a retaliatory smear campaign, survived the initial skirmishes.
And it is now moving toward a potentially explosive trial set for May 2026.
The legal focus is now entirely back on the original claims of sexual harassment and hostile work environment, absent the distraction, the intimidation, and the crushing legal cost of the countersuit.
The anti-SLAPP victory essentially cleared the path for the accuser's claim to be heard on its merits, which is exactly what the statute was designed to do.
What stands out to me most, looking back at all the source material, is how this case highlights the terrifying dual nature of modern high-stakes disputes.
How do you mean?
You have the clean procedural world of the courtroom, where anti-SLAP laws and evidence rules apply, and then you have the messy, manipulated, and often ruthless world of social media narratives, where astroturfing and targeted subpoenas are the rules of engagement.
It does, and that dynamic leads us to a crucial final provocation for you, the listener, to consider. This entire saga asks a brutal question about modern media and legal battles that extend far beyond these two celebrities. We are now in an era where every private text message can be leaked. Every legal strategy is dissected instantly, and the trial happens simultaneously on TikTok and in the courthouse.
Absolutely. When legal teams are sophisticated enough to weaponize concepts like DARVO and anti-SLAPP in their filings, and PR teams are simultaneously accused of actively organizing hate campaigns to flood social media, what does this entire spectacle say about the durability of reputation?
Can any public figure truly survive a war where evidence is being destroyed on encrypted apps, where critics are being subpoenaed to silence commentary, and where the public is left with two equally compelling, equally aggressive narratives, knowing that both parties are fighting primarily for control?
This case isn't just about who wins in May 2026.
No, it's about the cost of honesty, or calculated dishonesty, in the age of total weaponized digital visibility. It demands we question where the truth can actually be found when money and power collide this aggressively.
That is definitely something worth mulling over. We will be watching for the outcome in May 2026. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into one of Hollywood's most complex and ugliest battles.